The last two times these two story programs met, it was with a national championship on the line. Not quite the stakes this time around, but mighty important, especially to Miami, to get off to a great start to show that they belong. And of course, Alabama looking to repeat for the first time since they did it in 2011, 2012. Welcome to our Alabama-Miami preview here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys know the drill. Leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics in the live chat, and we will get to them as soon as possible. This is only possible because of these two guys. Brad Tejeda joins us from Canes Insight. We also have Tony Sekulis on the line with us from Bama Insider for a first time here at the Voice of College Football. Tony, Brad, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Brad, if you don't mind, we'll start with Tony. He's a first-timer here at the Voice of College Football. Tony, good to have you here to get the Bama perspective. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the 2021 team in regards to, of course, the headliner is that Bryce Young gets the start, that he's the guy, that he's the big five-star, that it really has spoken to me that Nick Saban basically named him the starter before spring practice and didn't even have a quarterback battle. So let's start there in regards to his readiness for this game, what Miami and the nation will find out about Bryce Young most likely once they catch him for 60 minutes.
Well, when you look at Bryce Young, he was the #1 quarterback in last year's class, #2 overall player according to Rivals. He's a really talented player. He's a dual threat option, but he's going to want to throw the ball more than he's going to want to run it. It's hard to judge him on last year's production because a lot of times, he came in late in the game, handed the ball off. A lot of third and long. So he didn't get very many opportunities last year. The hype started to build this spring, though, when he won the MVP of the A-Day game, which is Alabama's spring game. He just had a really productive spring performance throughout all the Alabama scrimmages. It seems like he's clicking on all cylinders. Alabama seems pretty confident in him as well. He's kind of gained the trust and confidence of his teammates. And like you said, it's kind of strange that Alabama really didn't have a quarterback competition. I think it just speaks volumes to how confident they were in Bryce Young from what they've seen. So he's still going to be a quarterback making his first start. I think that's something, you have to watch, especially in this game. But as far as the talents there, I think people are going to see that five-star quarterback that they were promised coming out of the recruiting room.
Hey, we also have Derek Coe on the line from Cane Gang Radio show. They're on Sirius XM. Derek, good to see you.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. How's everybody doing?
We are doing well. And I'll tee it up for you and Brad. And then the way this is probably going to work best is if I stay out of the way and let all of you guys chop it up on Bama and Miami. So we started with the quarterback on the we started on the Alabama side with Bryce Young. D'Eriq King obviously had a lot of adversity to deal with this past offseason, going back to the Cheez-It Bowl and leaving the game, and then a lot of doubt concerning, is he going to be back? And if he is back, is he going to be the player that he was before he was injured because of course, a serious injury? So, Brad, I'll start with you in regards to any indication that we have that D'Eriq King's where he needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get it twisted, right? When you talk about the quarterback room and the word adversity, that's something that has been struggling with Miami for a very long time, right? And when it comes to this year in particular, the quarterback room seems to be like one of our strongest positions in the group. And that obviously gets led by the #1 player on the team, #1 jersey, and D'Eriq King. There's a main reason why he came back this year, and it was because of this game, right? September 4th. He wants to prove it to the world, to his teammates, and to pretty much all the doubters that he can be that guy. The thing with D'Eriq King is, right, he just came off of a torn ACL, so most people don't know how much is he going to be full blown for this game. Well, from mostly everything we've heard, he's going to be full go. From September 4th, it's going to be 8 months on the dot from when he got that surgery. And I think this is going to be, the first time in D'Eriq King's college career that he's going to have the same offensive coordinator for 2 years. So I think that's a big factor to look at when you're looking at this offense of Miami that's going to be returning pretty much all of its production.
Derek, your thoughts about D'Eriq King back at it, and I guess we'll find out probably within a few series if he's like 100%.
Right. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing with Derek King is obviously the offensive line. This offensive line has actually got a lot more depth, a lot more maturity, got a lot of upperclassmen. So I think first and foremost, that's going to help him out. Now, again, you're still talking about going against that Bama D. So I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but at least having some continuity and having some upperclassmen and having the continuity that the O line is going to be able to have, I think that's going to help him. Obviously, if the O line can give King a few seconds to get the ball out, I think that's going to be beneficial. But at the end of the day, you're still going against Bama, so it's going to be tough no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. So what does the approach need to be offensively to obviously stay within themselves, do what they do well? They can't obviously come out in a wishbone or do something that they are entirely unfamiliar with. They got to stay within themselves and do what they do well. But at the same time, you want to present something different than what you've presented for the last 11 games last season on tape to make Alabama have to prepare for something and surprise them to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, Mark, has to do with time, right? Like I mentioned before, this is the first time our quarterback gets to have the same offense coordinator 2 years in a row. And as you look at last year, not just Miami, but every team in college football, this past season when it went to the COVID, you weren't going through the same normal regulations that you're going through for a full offseason, right? So a lot of teams were already behind the gun, including a team like Miami who brought in a brand new quarterback, brand new offensive system. Well, now we're in year 2, full offseason. Miami is kind of on the opposite end of what actually Alabama is coming into September 4th, where we actually have the veteran quarterback. We have the more continuity on the offensive line along with the offensive weapons and the coaching staff. So this is something where Miami kind of has the edge, right? There isn't much edges you can give Miami to compared to a team like Alabama. But this seems to be like one of the ones where this isn't something Miami is used to. And I think that is going to be what they're going to have to use to kind of be in this football game, is like what you said, be Miami football players and play Miami football. And I think with the time of last year, you're going to see a lot more plays and air raid system. And I think you got to throw it 35 to 40 times on this Bama defense.
Tony, I'm going to give you the most difficult task here. I'm going to have you look for a weakness here on Alabama, just because you covered the team every day. You write about the team. You interact with Alabama fans and other SEC fans, anti-Bama fans, all the time. And you look at this football program, and it seems infallible. For as good as Clemson and Ohio State are, we saw what the separation was last year. And until we see otherwise, we would have to believe that Alabama just reloads. And we're hearing that this could be the best Alabama defense that we've seen since 2016 and 17.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking for a hole or a weakness on defense, I'd say good luck, because Alabama is just totally stacked there. I think they have the best linebacking core in the nation. When you look at the inside linebacking duo of Christian Harris and Henry TuaToho, and then the two edge rushers and Will Anderson Jr. and Chris Allen, I mean, that's insane. So defense is going to be tough for Miami. I think, for when you talk about Alabama with the ball, against Miami's defense, look, the offensive line, Alabama's offensive line has some talent. It's there and it will develop. But at the moment, just because of a few injuries this offseason, they haven't really had the chance to play all together. So you've got 5 talented guys, but is that offensive line gelled? And, can you get through that? And then if you can provide some pressure, can you force Bryce Young into some of those, first game or first start kind of jitters? I mean, you're kind of reaching at straws to kind of find weaknesses in this Alabama team because it's so loaded. But at the same time, that's kind of the way I think, Miami's going to have to do it. I think they're going to have to bend but not break on defense. And then when it comes to offense, I think they're just going to have to beat this offensive line. And then that might be the smallest chink at the moment in Alabama's armor right now. And if you can do that, get to Bryce Young, maybe get him riled up, then you can start seeing those mistakes happen, and maybe you can capitalize on that. But even on the offensive side of the ball, though, when you look at Alabama, they've got a great backfield of Brian Robinson, Jace McClellan, Trace Sanders, Rodell Williams. The receivers, they lost 2 first-round picks, but then they, grabbed Jamison Williams from Ohio State, and they have John Mechie, who would be a number 1 on most teams anyways as a wide receiver. So there's plenty of talent there as well. I just think, Miami's going to have to play a really strong game and really kind of hope for all the breaks if they're going to pull this upset.
Mark, no disrespect to like John Benchy or Jameson Williams, and obviously a diehard Miami fan, I'm actually excited to see Aggie Hall. I mean, because the kid is the real deal, right? So, no disrespect to those other two, but man, Aggie Hall is on a different level.
No, yeah, and he made some absolutely incredible catches during the spring game. He's a guy that's listed on the. He's in the 2 deep, but he's kind of on that second string of receivers. I'm sure we'll get to see him, and geez, it seems like every time he steps on the field, he makes one of those kind of plays. But he won't be a starter just yet for Alabama. But that, just from seeing him in that spring game, I mean,
right.
I see him as maybe the next Jerry Jeudy over there. He's just because he can make some absolutely just crazy catches. That's who he reminds me of just from watching him from the brief time we've been able to watch him.
Hey, Brad and Derek. Brad, I know we had a number of conversations this offseason, and Derek, you'll be able to relate to this, that Miami fans were wondering, hey, are we going to see the veterans that have disappointed us at a couple different position groups? I'll gravitate to linebacker and wide receiver. Or are we going to see the young guys be given a chance in fall camp to win jobs, to win playing time, even if they don't win the #1 spot, to make an impact, get on the field? Based on the depth chart, based on what we know, do we think those young guys have made an impression?
I think so, because obviously those older guys aren't on the depth chart. I mean, they're not even listed as like 3 deep. But again, you never know what happens with injuries. Maybe sometimes these older guys need a humbling experience and, eat some a humble pie and, put the work in. I mean, if these young guys are coming in and they're trying to, eat and get burned, by all means, I feel like you have to play, the best player available. I don't care if you're a freshman or if you're an upperclassman, you play your best players. And if the young guys are out working the older guys, through fall ball, and, then they deserve an opportunity to play, on Saturdays.
Yeah, well, I mean, to piggyback off of what Coach said, I mean, when you look at Miami's depth chart, we have a lot of positions where there are multiple guys that might not necessarily be on the 2 deep rotation, but they could be, the 2 deep, 3 deep guy on multiple positions on the football team, which is something that Miami's been missing for a very long time. You look at the linebacker position, you look at the striker position in particular, we have a few guys that we can rotate in and out. So when you look at that 2 deep rotation on necessarily, the weak side linebacker or the striker, that guy could also be your second safety at times, or your third corner at times, depending on the schemes and the defense that Manny is going to be running. I think when it comes down to it, you got to look at the receivers for Miami, right? We just named all the big time names for Alabama, but when you look at Miami and you look at our depth chart, guys like D. Wiggins, guys like Mark Pope, those guys are now being passed by the younger, upcoming, redshirt freshmen and guys like Keyshawn Smith, Xavier Restrepo, and Michael Redding, right? When you combine all 3 of those guys' stats from last year, I believe they don't even mark 100 yards overall receiving yards, combining all 3 of those guys. And all 3 of those guys are going to be, 3, 4, 5 guys in that wide receiver man rotation. So this is going to be the year where, names being thrown at, there's a lot of expectations on these guys because like I just mentioned, from the stats last year, this is going to be the year they're going to have to prove it.
Good. Benzo Kane asking who the better quarterback is in this game. Well, I know who the quarterback is that we've got a track record on and a resume, obviously. So we're more certain of who De'Ara King is versus Bryce Young, of course. But I don't know who the better quarterback is. I know that Bryce Young, I will be surprised. And again, Tony, I go back to what I said earlier about the one thing that makes me certain that Bryce Young is ready for this stage and ready to lead this team, not just for this game, but throughout the season, is that coaches are usually cautious about quarterback competition, even if they've got it in the back of their mind and they pretty much know, hey, Kate, we want to go in this direction. They'll let them play it out through the spring into fall, and maybe with 10 days to 2 weeks left in the fall, then they'll make a decision or make it known and announce what everybody knew all along, that so-and-so is going to be the starting quarterback. But they just wanted to leave it out there to make them press, make them earn it. And with Nick Saban and Bryce Young, considering he's only thrown a couple handfuls of passes at a big-time level and no meaningful passes, for him to be just, you're the starter, take it away, that speaks volumes to me.
It definitely does. And even during the reports that we've had that, Bryce has not been as electric, or maybe they were dealing with holes in the offense, so the numbers weren't that great during some of the scrimmages. Even after those performances, Nick Saban's only came out and praised him. In fact, if there's been a critique of the offense, it's been the offense around Bryce Young. So I think he's really answered every test that Alabama's thrown at him. Look, even when he talks to the media, you see these new guys and their first time talking to the media, they're a little shy. Bryce took the bull by the horns, and he seems like a composed vet, in front of cameras. I know that's different than the football field itself, but I think it just speaks to his confidence. When you look at him, he's a guy that's been here, for a while now. He was a star in high school. He actually replaced JT Daniels at Mater Dei High School in California. So, the whole pressure, I guess, of replacing Mac Jones at Alabama, it's not as great because he's kind of already been in this situation before. So he knows how to handle it. And I think he's, like I said, gained that trust of his teammates, of his coaching staff, and they believe in him. And I think that's only going to help add to that confidence, knowing that he has that belief from his teammates. So it is nice. I think it will help him, the fact that they just kind of handed him this job, because it will only increase that confidence. I think you needed to build that up a little bit this offseason, and I think that they did that.
Hey, Brad and Derek, when I look at this Miami team compared to last season at this same time, the one spot I look at, and unless proven otherwise, I see a downgrade is, of course, you had two NFL defensive ends. Now, one opted out, and Greg Rousseau. I was really looking forward to seeing when we were hyping up the Clemson-Miami game during the offseason. I was thinking, okay, the one Miami shot in this game is, look at the Giants-Patriots Super Bowl when Strahan and Justin Tuck and those guys got after Brady. Great quarterbacks don't do so great when they're on their backside, and when you got elite pass rush, and that's what I was hoping to see. But of course, Russo opted out. I'm thinking the same thing here, but I don't see that type of star power at the DN position.
Yeah, me and Co were actually sitting next to each other at that game while it was raining, man. And I'll tell you what, I think the intensity of our guys have to be there in this football game. I think, being there, right next to the sideline and us being able to see it, seeing the faces and the way, the coaches and the players would react. You mentioned, some of the great defensive ends we had last year. That first two drives against Clemson, I'm telling you right now, those defensive ends were playing like the first rounders that they were. Unfortunately, flags happened, misdirection of plays happened. One bad play, turned a 0-0 game to a 13-0 in a matter of, 3 to 4 minutes. It's the adversity and the way we come back from things like that I want to see from this Miami team. And a lot of that has to go with experience on the leaders of the team and also on the coaching staff. And I mean, to Tony's point, everything he just praised with Bryce Young and the compliments that his teammates and his coaches feel comfortable with, these are all things that Miami already have the answers for with a guy like D'Eriq King. So this is where, again, I feel very comfortable having a second-year offensive coordinator going along with a Heisman candidate quarterback. And again, we're facing a talented Bryce Young, but let's not get it twisted. He's only thrown 22 passes in college football, only 156 yards and 1 touchdown. I need to see it to believe it.
Having Zach McCloud at one side, obviously you have DeAndre Stevenson transfer from Tennessee, so he's already seen Alabama a couple times. And I would agree with you, Mark. I mean, obviously, I would feel much more confident having like a Jalen Phillips or a Greg Rousseau or even a Quincy Roche line up on the outside. But, again, it's college football. Next man up. And obviously those two guys, Jalen Phillips and Greg Rousseau got drafted in the first round. Who's it not to say that Zach McCloud don't come off that left edge and, gets 3 sacks? We don't know. Obviously, he's a 6-year guy. He's experienced. I think he's better suited to be a D end than he is a linebacker. So, again, we'll wait and find out. Obviously, like the Alabama guy said, is, the offensive line is probably the weakest that Alabama's O-line has been in quite some time. So maybe that's where we can take advantage. Obviously, with John Ford and Nessa Severia and Harrison Hunt, some of the guys up the middle, maybe that helps out our DNs. And again, our DNs really just need to get upfield and contain, right, and turn everything back to the inside. And don't listen. At the end of the day, they just can't let the big time game, the Alabama, get into their head. They just have to stay mature, stay confident, and just play football.
I appreciate these three being here, providing such great insight into Alabama, Miami. It's our aim, it's our goal, it's our mission. You guys know this, who catch us on a regular basis here at the Voice of College Football, to provide the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. And these three are helping us do just that right now. So you guys are so giving of your time. I want to make sure that people know where you guys are located, where they can find you, where they can follow your work, because we want to definitely do that as well. So Tony, we'll start with you. Tony Sakalis from Bama Insider. Where can we find you, Tony?
Yeah, the site's BamaInsider.com. We're part of the Rivals Network. Follow us there. You can also follow us at Bama Insider on Twitter. And we also have a really good YouTube account as well, Alabama Football. We have weekly shows like this as well. If you want to kind of, join the community, obviously it's going to be mostly Alabama talk, but we welcome everyone. And we have a really great forum to a really good message board where you can talk Alabama football with everyone. So definitely check us out. The site's BamaInsider.com.
You guys are going to forget how to react to a loss, though.
It's been a minute,
You're going to have to get into practice at some point. How do we respond when we lose a game?
The thing is, though, I mean, when Alabama loses 2 games, it's a terrible season, and the fans are just ready to give up on everything. So, just 2 years ago that they lost two games in the regular season, and you would think that they had the worst season in all of college football. To Alabama's fan base, not making the playoffs is the worst season in all of college football. So, the expectations are just through the roof. I mean, there's no margin for error with that fan base. So, they're not used to losing, and I think that of course they like it that way.
Yeah, that was the worst season in a decade. And I sat here for a week answering people's questions, and I basically stated, here's the deal. LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson are the 3 best teams in the country, and Oklahoma earned the spot because they won a conference. They only lost 1 game, but hey, if I had like my life on the line or my mortgage on the line, the 4th best team in the country, the top 4, Alabama, just throw Alabama in the playoff. That's, they didn't earn it, but they should be there. That's until proven otherwise. Again, Alabama rolls to another national championship last season. Under Tony, we've got, of course, Brad Tejeda from Canes Insight. Brad.
Yes, sir. You can find me on Twitter at Tejeda Brad. That's TEJEDABRAD. Then also, like you mentioned, I am also on CanesInsight.com along with our great YouTube channel. Just type in Canes Insight. We do shows all throughout the week. We have a lot of great co-hosts of mine as well, talking Hurricanes football.
Derek, what you got?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, CaneFanCo. Obviously, I'm part of the Slam Radio Network on SiriusXM channel 145. We have a great show there called the Cane Gang Radio Show. We chop it up with pretty much anybody and everybody, so we don't discriminate. I mean, again, if Tony, you want to hop on our show, I'd be more than happy to have you. Obviously, it's a great time. It's a great platform just to be able to talk everything University of Miami, especially football. So we look forward to anytime with anybody, and we just have a great time.
And Derek's going to help us out on our post-game coverage here at the Voice of College Football. So right on this channel, whether you're watching the main channel, the Miami channel, or the SEC channel, we're simulcasting across the 3 right now. But on the Miami channel, after every Canes game, we've got, for the first time, post-game coverage, and Derek is going to help contribute to that. So, thank you so much for jumping on board and being part of that for us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Where do we go next with this? I think Miami's got probably its best running back core. What do you think, Brad, for quite some time?
Yeah, you talk about a 3-headed monster, right? You got Cam Harris coming back 1 more year, who seems to be the returning starter and the heavy favorite to get, the heavy load, what it seems like. But then you got guys like Don Chaney and Rooster, like people know. You got a lot of different types of backs. I would honestly say this is probably the of backs that I could say in a very long time, going back to the early 2000s. And then another name I could honestly mention, you probably won't see him much in the Alabama game, but a name to look out for throughout the season is going to be Cody Brown. He's going to be someone similar to what Travis Homer brought to this Miami Hurricane football team his first and second year. Look for him on special teams. He's a guy that, is a force to be reckoned with. He's a very strong body, can pretty much run through contact, and also is elusive. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from the running back group.
Derek, you can certainly comment on the running backs if you'd like, but I got another question for you.
Yeah, go ahead. It's fine. Brad touched on the running backs.
And I've had Brad on here enough to know where he has stood in regards to just taking a larger picture look at this program, where it's been, what's happened the last few years, the transition to Manny Diaz, where he stands on the coaching staff. So where have you stood in regards to praise and criticism for Manny Diaz and this coaching staff?
I'm actually on an upward swing. I mean, obviously, when Manny took over, obviously you can't knock, the first year going 6-7. You can't justify losing to FIU, Duke, and La Tech, right? But then obviously last year, you saw the swing, you saw the pendulum kind of change a little bit. He went 8-3. And again, Manny's done the right things. Our offense was putrid a couple years back. He got rid of Dan Enos, brought in Rhett Lashley. Last year, our defense was kind of subpar. So Manny decided, to call the defense on his own. So Manny's doing the right things as a head coach. And, he's making the changes that need to be made. I still feel like you have to give somebody their 4 full years as far as recruiting in order to build. So only time will tell. I mean, obviously last year we ended on a down note with the Oklahoma State and the Carolina game. But to put things in perspective, you finished 8-3. If you played that Georgia Tech game, obviously it was a COVID year, you probably, 9-2. Maybe if you win the bowl game, you're 10-2. So I'm liking the way that things are going. Obviously bringing in some hires, with like T-Rob, obviously before T-Will went back to Central Florida with Gus Malzahn. I think Manny's doing the right thing as far as getting the right hires. And again, obviously Bob Shoop coming in from Michigan was a huge asset. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, wins are the make or break of your team. So we'll see how it unfolds at the end of this season.
Tony, I'm going to ask you the impossible question because people have tried to communicate why Nick Saban's Nick Saban and why he's as great as he is. Loses coordinators all over the place, has set a gold standard there that basically in his second season at Alabama, he reached that in being number 1 in the country, going to the SEC championship game, barely losing. And then from then on, he's been on a roll. What makes him so good, so consistent, where 18 to 22-year-olds just kind of take that process and they actually execute it every week? And they say teams take on the identity of their coaches and the personality of their coaches. There we see teams that play in the clutch, they play with poise, they play with toughness, determination, all those things. And there it is. It just keeps going year after year.
Well, first of all, a lot of it's recruiting. I mean,
Sure.
It's a lot easier to do this thing. And we can talk about the process in a little bit, but when you lose 2 first rounders and bring in, a slew of rivals 100 receivers to replace them, every single year, it's like Alabama reloads with a guy just as good as the guy that just left.
But he was the guy that started that. Not to cut you off, Tony, but he was the guy that Alabama wasn't recruiting like that 15 years ago.
I'm just saying, his success, as great as the process is and as great as a coach he is and on the field coach, I think his success all starts with his ability to bring in those guys because, he's able to surround his team with so much talent. And I think when you do that, you have such a competition. Not only does it drive, the kind of iron sharpens iron mentality, you also have, if you're going to mess up in this system, you're going to be replaced. So they don't have room for those kind of egos that, that think that they're bigger than the team, because those players get passed over at Alabama. Look, Jaleel Billingsley is probably one of the best offensive tight ends in the nation. He's not a starter for Alabama right now because he hasn't bought into the process, and that's something that Nick Saban's talked about. And if he doesn't buy into the process, he might not play for Alabama this season. The thing is, Alabama is going to be able to survive that. So if you have instances like that with Nick Saban, you're able to kind of preach that process, and now over time, and it's a proven system, right? And so they get 4 or 5 draft picks every year. Kids see that, and then they know that if I buy in, I'm going to be a millionaire in 3 years. And so you're just able to get these high talented kids to kind of adapt to this winning culture. And it really is a machine right now, but I think it all starts with the secret behind everything is the recruiting, because you can't teach talent a lot of times. And, Alabama is certainly bringing in a load of talented players every single year.
Hey, Mark, can I touch on that real quick?
Sure, go to it.
So, and again, Tony, I completely agree with you. You get these 5-star kids that come in and they're 5-star recruits. they don't mind sitting on the bench for a year or two, waiting their opportunity. I mean, even looking at like guys like Mac Jones, right? So again, I think they buy into where a lot of programs, kids go to different programs, and if they don't get their PT in their first, year, they're just hitting the transfer portal now, right? So I think what Alabama's doing, listen, it does factor on Alabama winning national titles year after year after year, right? I'm not saying that that's not part of it, but they do have, the opportunity to sit there to get coached up. Because again, Saban's bringing in pretty much the best of the best. Again, you're losing coaches left and right, but Saban's just replacing those coaches just like he's replacing the players. So Saban's doing a terrific job. Obviously, I hated him when he was with the Dolphins, right? But now he's going to Alabama. I got to respect what he's doing. And again, what Alabama's doing now is what Miami did in the late 80s and the early 90s. So again, it's two great programs. And again, it's going to be better when Miami can actually get back to where they used to be. And again, I think it's better for college football as well. But to go along with your point, Tony, those kids, again, their egos to a side, they just want to play and they want to win, and they don't mind waiting and buying their time.
Yeah, and I think especially when you look at it's only going to aid Alabama with the way the transfers work right now too, because if a guy does want to transfer out of the program, Alabama's just going to bring in a guy like Henry TuaTola from Tennessee. There's more people that want to be a part of this process than don't want to be a part of it. So it's just going to feed the beast. And I think as long as it's rolling, like you said, and as long as they're winning, and as long as Alabama's spitting out NFL talent, kids are going to want to put up with it. Yeah, it's a little bit harder. Maybe they're not getting praised quite the way that they were in high school, and they don't have as much power on the team. But I think kids are willing to put up with that, knowing that it's all going to work out for them in the end.
Yep. They got the blueprint, right? I mean, any Alabama football player in 3 years, you're getting a national championship ring. It's a fact.
And a car.
Yeah.
And a car.
Yeah. You hear all the stuff about the Dodge Chargers. I know it's a big joke. So.
I'm going to be interested between these three elite programs because they all have gone about it a different way in regards to where they've come to this point. So Clemson seems to be all about Dabo, and I don't want to give him too much credit. Clemson had good football programs, good football teams before that, but they were in that 8-4 range. They were a top 15 to 25 program. They were good, but they weren't competing for national championships. And that's all about Dabo. Now we'll see if they can hand it off to somebody else who's just as good. Ohio State's now working on a third consecutive coach. If you look at Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day, that win 90+% of their games. So I think it's more just about the place. Now, again, you can't just hire any coach and just plug them in and say it's Ohio State, they're just going to win. But Alabama was largely down. They had a couple decent seasons here and there, but from the mid 90s, late 90s, in that range up until, and their last national title was 1992, up until Saban, Alabama showed that they can go 3-9, they can go 5-7, they can churn out a lot of 7-5s and 8-4s. So it'll be intriguing to see post Saban if they'll maintain that lofty status.
Yeah, it's also just a blueprint for success, for Miami too. I mean, right now Alabama has it, but like you said, I mean, if you're a program like Miami that, is trying to regain that dominance, well, you're watching the team that you need to follow right now. So I fully expect Miami to be back. It starts with, like I said, recruiting Miami though. If Miami can draw more of a fence around Miami, there's plenty of talent to go around down there. And so I fully expect them to be back. It's going to be a process.
So I hate to be the contrarian here, but I'm going to have to see that. I hate to be the contrarian, especially with two great Miami guys right here, man. Derek's helping me on my post game this fall, and Brad's been an amazing guest and supports me all the time. But it's been 15+ years since we've seen Miami be Miami. So let's start with this. If Alabama has to stay in state and recruit players, and Miami gets to stay where they are, Miami's got the best advantage of almost any program in the country. So they got the players right there. They've obviously not been able to combine the recruiting and the developing of the players. So, Tony, I understand that you believe Miami's going to be back. I
I just there's
I'm
not a
gonna
lot
have
of
to see
competition in
it.
that, there's not a ton of competition in that conference, you know. So if you do put together some good teams, I mean, you beat Clemson, you're right there. I mean, look how good was North Carolina a few years ago, and now that they're becoming a challenger for Clemson. It's just I don't think it's a very competitive conference at the moment, and so it gives you an opportunity
It's true.
to build up and you know that's you know and if you can get the recruits to play there, I think that Miami can make a run in that conference. And
So
Listen,
now we're gonna ask the experts now.
unfortunately, that is something, Tony, that Miami fans have said every single football season before it starts. Look at our conference. Look at our schedule. Man, we should only lose 2 games. We should only lose 3 games. There's always those other games that just gets us in the butt. And I'm gonna say, man, this year, with everything that's gone on in the world in the past 2 years, I'm gonna say just like this: why not the Miami Hurricanes? First game of the year. We all know college football on any given day, anyone could win a football game. We just talked about we got a proven quarterback and a leader on the football team, something that Miami hasn't had in years. We got a proven offensive coordinator under our helm. We finally have our defense back. Being able to get both sides of the football to play as one whole complete football team is something that Miami has not been able to do. I think now with the pieces together, this is the year where we have to do it. So that's where I'm at as far as a Miami Hurricane fan. Why not us? First game of the year. I think we have the pieces in place. And like Tony said, look at our conference. Even if we do lose this game to Alabama, I think the table is there for us to go to Charlotte. And I think when you talk to the football players on the team, when you talk to the coaches on the team, there is one goal, and it is to get to Charlotte. That is their number one goal on this football team. They need to make sure they're in Charlotte, and there's nothing else less than that.
You know, one thing, and Tony, like you look at Alabama's success, right? You look starting back at like 08, you get Amari Cooper out of Northwestern, right? You take a huge receiver that, again, if he comes to Miami, like who knows how that transitions. Then you get someone like Calvin Ridley. Then you get Jerry Jeudy. Then now you get Ja'Cory Brooks. Like you get kids like big time receivers that could potentially help Miami. But again, I think it all stems from winning. Miami hasn't been winning, like Mark said. We haven't been relevant in roughly 17 years. So again, the easy route is to let's go play somewhere where we can get exposure, where we can play. Obviously, Alabama's got the best O-line, the best receivers, the best quarterback, the best running back, right? So it makes it easier for those individuals to go out there and perform, right? But at the end of the day, if Miami, like you saw this year, you kept a 5-star in James Williams, you kept a 5-star in Leonard Taylor. And again, if you can build and you can win this season, who's not to say that you don't get more 5-star recruits to start staying home, you know, the high 4 stars. And I think it all predicates on winning. And until Miami wins consistently, it's not going to change. So they got to be able to go out there. They got to win 9, 10, 11 games, win that big time bowl game, you know, and then you'll start seeing kids want to stay home and help build the Miami program back the way it used to be.
Exactly. And if you look at it, like, you know, you mentioned Amari Cooper, right? Well, maybe Alabama doesn't get Calvin Ridley if Amari Cooper didn't have as much success. And then maybe Jerry Jeudy doesn't follow Calvin Ridley, you know? And so all it takes is, like you said, one of those guys to stay home, have a ton of success, be a first-round pick, you know, out of Miami. And then some of those Miami guys are going to start to say, oh, okay, I can do this and stay at home. You know, I'm going to want to do that. I'm going to want to be closer to my family. And then it just snowballs from there. And so you get the same thing that, you know, Alabama had with Amari Cooper. So you do have to win, but, you know, it can snowball, I think, a little bit faster than you think.
So, Derek, for you, what I'm guessing there are no moral victories, but at the same time being realistic, and I'm going to throw 10 to 15% out there as Miami's chances of winning this game. Who knows? But that's about what I estimate. So it's not impossible. If they win the game, will I be surprised? Yeah, I will be surprised. I won't be like in utter shock if Miami wins this game, because I do think that they've got a puncher's chance. They've got a lot of talent on the team. But realistically, and a win may be realistic for you, Derek. So whatever that is, but if you're thinking it's not, like a lot of Miami people don't think it's realistic, where would you come away from that game feeling good about the performance?
Well, I always say this, and again, I've said Miami has a legit opportunity to shock college football and win this game, right? If you don't win, but you're at least competitive within 10 points per se, right? The spread's 19.5. If you're telling me that you can stay within 10 points of the #1 Alabama team, again, I'm not into moral victories, but at the end of the day, that's only got to boost your confidence. And like I've told people before, this game against Alabama does not make or break the University of Miami's 2021 season. That means nothing. Obviously, your focus as a Miami Hurricane should be your next 10 games. Win your conference. Go against Clemson, potentially in the ACC title game. Again, go to Charlotte, beat Clemson, and who knows? If you run the table, you might play Alabama again in a playoff. So the main thing for me is to see, continue, climb that ladder of success. You were 6-7, you were 8-3. Now can we go 10-2, maybe 11-1? That's what I want to see. And again, if you lose, don't lose like you did to Clemson. Don't lose like you did to Carolina. Like, lose respectively like you've been there before. So to me, it all boils down to, what is the maturity level going to be? Either win against Alabama, and then how are you going to respond against App State? Or when you lose to Alabama, how are you going to respond against App State?
Yeah, and I mean, we mentioned Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, right? And those are two big name head coaches in college football. And it took them 4 years. It was year 4 for both of those head coaches to where when they started having a successful program, as far as, having at least 8 to 9 wins. And I think this is year 4 for Manny Diaz, and this is his time to do it.
I will say that Alabama went undefeated in the regular season, year 2 for Saban. But
for Saban,
yeah, he's
year 2.
Yeah,
so maybe it was
he had a big year in year 2.
It's hard to compare anyone to that standard.
You're right. You're right. It's hard to compare anybody to Bama, to be honest. It really is.
It sure is. Yeah.
Pete Carroll had a big year 2. Urban Meyer had a big year 2. Urban Meyer had a big year 1. But it's tough to do. It's tough to do. No doubt about there.
Larry Coker had a big year 1. Just throw that out there.
Well, he didn't have a mess to clean up.
I'm just saying.
I think any of the 4 of us would have had a big year 1 with that. Chuck Mobeer, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Appreciate that so much. Great show, Mark, Brad, Derek, and Tony. Let's go Canes. It's great to be a Miami Hurricane. There you go. Chuck Mo, thank you so much for the contribution. What have we missed on this whole deal? How is that Miami recruiting looking? I know that right now is a bit of that dead period, not officially, but in regards to not a whole lot of commits and so forth. But dead period ended at the end of May, Brad. We talked about how big the summer was going to be. Were you satisfied with the commits that came in during the summer?
I mean, yeah, I think you missed on a couple, right? But I think every program misses on a few. I think, again, this recruiting cycle is far from over. In the words of my guy to the left of me, Derek Coe, nothing's official until they sign on the line on National Signing Day, right? And I think there's plenty of time for that. And I think a lot of these big names that Miami's going after still and have their names, and it relies on this football season. So I think as the football season goes, once you get to like week 4, week 5, we'll start to see how serious we are for some of these guys. I think the one name to look out for is maybe Jaleel Skinner, tight end target for the Miami's going after. I think that's a name to look out for.
Hey, and we talked a little bit about Alabama poaching Miami talent, but Miami came in and took a cornerback in Traquan Fagans.
Yes, sir.
Alabama. So, that's a pretty notable thing for Miami recruiting as well.
Yeah, that's a Miami Immortal. Shout out to my guy, Coach Duaso. And it's weird too, man, because Fagans wasn't an Alabama fan, and yet he's from Oxford, Alabama. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, we found a way to steal him out of Alabama's backyard. And again, we talk about recruiting, right? And I think one of the main positions besides linebacker that has hurt Miami for years is the cornerback room. And when you look at this cornerback room as far as recruiting for this year, this is the best cornerback class Miami's had ever.
We've had some good cornerbacks too. So
recruiting wise, I'm not talking, what they're going to do on the field, just recruiting as far as star ratings. This is as deep as it gets. We got 4 guys that could definitely play football.
Yeah, 4 of like the top 15 in the country. So went into SEC country, just not for Alabama, but one of them from Mississippi, right?
Yep. Kamari Rogers.
Yeah.
Going to be a big name as well. I believe he got Mississippi Player of the Week this past week. And another name, anybody that follows me, they know my guy Landon Ibieta. He is going to tear it up this year. He's already making moves every single week, man. He had a punt return for a touchdown, and he also had a regular receiving touchdown in his first game out in Manville, Louisiana. So watch out for him as well. I know LSU and even Nick Saban gave him a call after he committed to the University of Miami.
So Mark Richt, if I remember right, his last class, in which he was the coach for the entire cycle, was 8th rated in the country. Of course, he did a great job recruiting at Georgia. Manny seems to be maybe, and his staff, a little bit more aggressive. We pretty pleased, Derek, in regards to the upsurge in recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you can start landing, and like Brad said, obviously our linebacker and our cornerback, class the last couple of years has been like really, really thin, right? And almost depleted. I mean, so if you look at what we've touched on this off season here, sky's the limit with these guys, but not just getting the kids, you got to be able to coach them up. And that's why I go back to like with Alabama. Those kids sit there, they don't mind sitting on the bench, but they're getting coached up. So I don't care if you're a 2-star recruit or a 5-star recruit. As long as you can continue to get better, just get on the field and perform. So I think that stems from good coaching, and I think that's where Manny has done a good job, not just recruiting the kids, but again having guys like T-Rob, coming in and be able to, who's already had a relationship with other kids when he was at South Carolina. It's beneficial because he's been working with these kids and building relationships for the last couple of years. And then you transition someone like DVD, who now has become the cornerback coach. I see Miami really starting to land some big time recruits. Now, obviously, Tony's probably pretty excited about Earl Little Jr. I mean, obviously, I would like to see Earl stay at home. If he doesn't, he doesn't. If he goes to Bama, he goes to Bama. But again, this goes to where I'm saying the talent and the local talent at Miami needs to stay in Miami.
That's a perfect case of it. And like Earl Little's somebody that, I think most people are projecting him to go to Alabama, but that's one of those, if Miami could just kind of put their foot down, it'd be a big statement signing for them as well. And I think, it's all good to talk about like that that's going to happen eventually from a Miami standpoint, but you're right. I think that's a huge one right there that, there needs to be a time when they both go after a kid and Miami comes away with it.
Well, I mean, even go back a couple of years, the Tyson Campbells, the Patrick Surtains. I mean, they're literally all from the same high school, So at the end of the day, you lose Surtain, you lose Josh Jobe, Jordan Battle, like all these kids that Alabama has gotten. These are local kids that if Miami could have been in the win column a little bit more, like who knows how that would have transitioned with those players maybe going to Miami. But obviously, again, Alabama does a great job coming down to South Florida. They laid the blueprint down. They're winning national titles. And listen, kids are about winning, right? They want to win. They want to be on national TV. They want to show like the world what they can do. And when you guys are playing, week in and week out at 3:30, at 8 o'clock, having college game day, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You guys are setting a standard, and that's where Miami has to get back to.
How do you think the NIL is going to affect Miami as compared to like will that be an advantage, you think, to Miami being in that, a big city like that, or will it be less of an advantage because there's other things in that city? I mean, what's your feeling on that?
Well, hopefully it transcends to what, Alabama's already been doing for the last couple of years, right? So if the NIL can only benefit Miami again, and what that's already done, obviously there's America Top Team who donated over $500,000. So, that's huge. But at the end of the day, like, money's money, but at the end of the day, you still have to win games. Like kids aren't just going to come here just because they can get an extra $500 in their pocket. You know what I mean? So I think long-term goal is number one, produce, get into the league, and that's where your real money is going to be. But I think it will help Miami with the NIL, and obviously you've already seen that. But again, you look at guys, the high school kid that just went to Ohio State. Look what he just signed, and that kid hasn't even been in college for but a week. Quinn Ayers. I mean, and look what Bryce Young is, looking at signing and things like that. So I don't know. I think the whole NIL completely changes amateur sports. I'm a big proponent of, listen, you're going to college, you're getting a free education, you're getting free travel, you're getting free, free gear. Like now you're getting paid on top of that. I thought that was a whole, recipe of getting to the league in order to get paid. But I understand it's a business, and things change. You got to roll with the times. And I don't know how the NCAA is going to stop anything from changing now.
And to piggyback off of what Coach said too, I mean, I think obviously it's an advantage for us, right? But at the same time, it's also a disadvantage because, as we all know, the city of Miami is the bright lights, right? There's always something to do. And it's just another thing for these young men, these college student athletes. A lot of people forget, right? Not only are they playing on the football field, but they got to do schoolwork, right? And this is just another thing to add on top of, to where they're going to have to figure out how to do it, right? Figure out taxes, figure out money situation, figure out if this is the right business opportunity for you, figure out, if you want to put your face on this platform, on this brand. And I think with a guy like Manny Diaz, him and the University of Miami has done a very good job this past offseason at kind of putting these college athletes into, classroom type of settings, giving them, projections and slideshows to kind of teaching them, showing them the ropes. Because as we know, man, the city of Miami, there's money to be made and there's money to be had. And I think at the end of the day, the advantage to all this is still going to have to come down to one thing, and it starts with a W, and that's winning. You got to win football games. This NIL thing can benefit us. But if we're not winning football games, people are going to start using Miami for the wrong reasons. Get in the bag and leave it, like they're doing at other schools. And we don't want to be like that.
Do recruits show up to these neutral site games?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Brad, do we know what that list looks like for Miami?
Not as of right now. I know the Bama-Miami game, there isn't too many visitors for that game, but I can tell you the Miami-Michigan State game, be on the lookout for that game. You're going to see about half of the recruiting class that Miami currently has signed, along with about 7 to 8 different targets, all at that Michigan State game.
Tony, do you know of anyone on the Bama target list that's going to Atlanta?
Yeah, let me. I'm not the recruiting guy, so I'm going to try to pull up a.
Steal from the recruiting guy. Let's see who's going to be in Atlanta.
But I know that there's going to be a whole host of recruits at that game. I don't know if I have the list in front of me right now, but
oh, you're good.
But yeah, there's going to be a ton of all these opening games. Alabama does these, for a reason, because they put you in a high profile. You're able to, be seen not only on a national stage, but a lot of these kids, they want to come to games like this in big cities. So there's going to be a lot of attention and a lot of players there.
I thought they did it just to get under my skin, so I get on here and rant and rave why Alabama never travels anywhere.
Yeah, well, Earl Little Jr., Emmanuel Henderson, Kobe Prentice, Antonio Kite, Jake Pope, Dane Shore, Elijah Brown, Isaiah Bond, LT Overton, Peter Woods, Jaleel Hurley, Terrence Love. So, shoot, a ton of names. The list keeps on growing, but a ton of names coming to see this game.
And there's 3 or 4 of those names that you just mentioned that if Miami finds a way to pull up the upset, I could see 3 or 4 of those names starting to get some more attention and love for Miami after that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it goes both ways. Because if you bring in recruits here and they see, they're also going to get to see what Miami puts on the field as well. So you're right.
Bama in Miami should be a good one. Hopefully the Canes can keep it close, and we will watch a game into the fourth quarter. Of course, the Tide's a big 19.5-point favorite. Game in Atlanta. The Tide used to playing these big season openers against the likes of Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida State, USC. You could name them off over the last 12 to 13 years under the Saban era. Miami's last splash in this type of game was against LSU a couple of years ago in Houston, right?
Dallas.
Didn't turn out too well against. That was before we knew Joe Burrow was Joe Burrow, and LSU put it on the Canes on that one. But it's a whole new staff, whole new team. This is what we got: Miami and Alabama, 3:30 Eastern from Atlanta. Brad's going to be there. Derek, you're going to be there, of course, right?
Yeah, I don't miss games.
I did not think so. And Tony, we appreciate you being here. And one more time, it's Tony Tsoukalas from Bama Insider. Make sure you follow him and his work. Derek Coe right below me. One more time, I'm going to screw it up if I don't rip off the SiriusXM name and location. So do that for me, Derek.
Yeah, you can follow us at the Kane Gang Radio Show on SiriusXM, channel 145. We air every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I don't think Brad needs any introduction. He's got enough people that know all about him. No, Brad, where can people find you?
Yeah, man, you can find me at canesinsight.com, YouTube, type in Canes Insight as well. And then, of course, my Twitter handle at Tejeda Brad. And then hopefully you can find me September 4th on the Jumbotron with my guy, Derek Coe, who seems to always be on that thing every football game. Yeah, man, I'm excited, man. we as fans, right? We love talking Hurricanes football, but at the end of the day, we're fans, and we're traveling 5, 10 hours, 15 hours to go to a football game, and you better believe we're going there for one reason, thinking we're going to win that football game.
312 folks on the line right now. So most of you just showed up here in the last 20 minutes. So you know what you do? You wait for this video to post, and then you check out what you missed right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here one more time. Derek, we got Derek, Jordan, and Ross going to be here post-game. Alabama, Miami right here, the Voice of College Football Miami. I'm sure Brad's going to tear it up as well. Again, Tony as well at Bama Insider. Guys, it's been a great time. Appreciate you jumping on board, making this what it is.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Go
We'll see everybody in a few minutes on our Nebraska channel, Nebraska Live, 8 p.m. Eastern Time in just a few minutes. See you then.
All right.